Welcome, welcome. Welcome to Breakfast at Charlie's. You got anything to drink? I sure do. I got a piwnicze because I'm here in Poland right now. So I'm drinking piwnicze, naturalna, woda mineralna, gasowana. So it's got gas in it. So it has bubbles, which is pretty exciting. Dig it? It's time to wrap up here in Poland. But before we moved on to our next destination, I wanted to talk about our last destination, which was Serbia. And I wanted to give you a little bit of a financial update, trying to do things while I'm talking to you too. So hopefully that's okay, and we'll see how this works. But I wanted to provide a financial update for how everything's going. We're almost 4 months into the retirement. Things are going well. We're enjoying ourselves. We're not missing anything really. We're missing our friends back home, but we're happy that we're on the road and we don't have any regrets 4 months into our journey. But when I started this channel, I mentioned that I wanted to provide financial updates and kind of talk about other things that I was doing in my life. So I thought I'd talk about our trip to Serbia. We spent 5 weeks in Serbia, and for the 5 week total, it came out to $5,500. Which, if you divide 5,500 by 5 and multiply it by 30, or by 35, and then multiply back by 30 to get a monthly amount, that works out to about $4,700 a month. Within that bucket, we had $625 worth of airfare round trip between Poland and Serbia, and then back from Serbia back to Poland. So we went from Krakow to Belgrade, and then we went back to Belgrade to Krakow, coming back to the EU to go visit my wife's mama. So that was $625. That's included in that $5,500. And then we had $1,400 for Airbnb. So the Airbnb that we rented in Belgrade was just really, it was really cool. I'm going to provide a link, hopefully, in the comments below. If you ever do go to Belgrade, I recommend staying at this apartment. It was really super cool. It was on one of the main lines, or the main arteries, going all the way to downtown, so you can catch the train. Just walk outside, walk to the middle of the street, and then go catch the train. And it was just a really super cool apartment. We really enjoyed ourselves there. So those were our expenses for Serbia. So that was definitely, I don't want to say that we have a budget. What's a budget? A budget? That's like French for budget or something weird like that. My wife hates that word, so we're going to try to keep that out of the conversation. But definitely was happy with where we wound up with the expenses. What wasn't included in those expenses? Insurance, obviously. I'm using Safety Wing right now. I bought a 12-month program. It's $2,000 annually. My wife, we're just kind of doing things piecemeal with her. So she got a 5 week insurance plan from Poland, since she's a Polish national, and that was $80. And then also not included in that $5,500 total was our phone. It did include our eSIMs, but like our base phone, we use Tello in the United States, and that's running us, well, $5 for each line, so $10 a month, and then plus we have a little bit of data there in the United States that we're keeping, that we're probably wasting money on. Netflix, Disney, right? And YouTube. So any of our entertainment that we pay for, that we watch, that's not included in that $5,500 and $4,700 as it works out monthly. And then we have some storage stateside that we're paying for, and that's not included in the nut either for the trip to Serbia. So that's what's not included. In other financial news, I mentioned to you guys that I was going to give you some financial updates. I was working on getting all my finances set up, and it took me a little bit of while, and I'm still working on that last little piece. I had I have really a two bucket strategy for the retirement, and living. The first bucket is for living, so that's my safe bucket, and then the other bucket is just invested in equities. So my safe bucket is a fairly big bucket. I've got 7 years worth of safe investments in that bucket. So I can, I anticipate that we'll be able to live on that bucket for 7 years. And then the other bucket is invested 100% in equities. And I'm not a financial advisor, so I'm just giving you information and sharing information about how I'm doing things for me and my wife. So it's about a 35-65% split. In that 35% bucket, I have one piece that I had put into bond funds earlier in the year. Bond funds have continued to suck. So I got out of bond funds and took the money that I had in bond funds and moved it to a multi-year guaranteed annuity. So in my bucket, and I'm going to probably repeat myself a little bit here, but in my safe bucket, it's comprised of 20% is of that money are in money markets. 22% are in MIGAs, multi-year guaranteed annuities, which used to be the bond funds, but I moved them to multi-year guaranteed annuities, and I'll talk about that in a minute. 6% in corporate bonds, and which is different than a bond fund. I bought some corporate bonds just because you get a little bigger yield on the corporate bonds. And I have a note that I'm going to talk about that a little bit more down below. And then 52% of the remaining amount in that safe bucket are invested in CDs that have a maturity of 12 months and 24 months. And so the total yield for the next 2 years on that safe bucket works out to be about 4.7%. So I'm making 4.7% on that money. If you have money that's very liquid, or that you're going to use up, in the next couple of years, so you keep it in safe investments that aren't going to go down. I was able to, everything combined, it works out to be about 4.7%. Multi-year guaranteed annuities, MIGAs. So everybody talks about annuities and how they suck. At least the people that are not selling annuities talk about it that way. And for the most part, I agree. And I looked at some annuities, and the annuities, like annuities that paid out, like a SPIA, I think they're called SPIA. And I don't know if I'll post a link about SPIAs anywhere, but you invest the money, and it's for a fixed period of time. So you give them X number of dollars, and then you get they send you a check every month for Y number of dollars. Well, when I looked at the rate of return on that, I give them X number of dollars, and then they pay me back Y. That rate of return was less than 3% on every SPIA that I looked at. So I said, well, that sucks. I looked at some other annuities, and I didn't like any of them except for this multi-year guaranteed annuity. And a multi-year guaranteed annuity, it's just like a CD, except it's not FDI insured. It is insured by your state, so that's the good news. And it works like a CD on steroids. And what do I mean by that? So I got a 5-year SPI, or not, I'm sorry, I got a 5-year MIGA, multi-year guaranteed annuity, and it's paying me 6.25%. The downside, obviously, is that it's not liquid. And if I need that money in the next 5 years, then I get hit pretty hard by trying to take that money out. So when you put it into a multi-year guaranteed annuity, you are definitely locked in. You're locked in, but you get a higher rate than you would on a CD. I have a 7 year time horizon, so the money that I have locked in for that 5 year rate, I won't be using. I don't need that until 5 years from now, because I've got the rest of my safe bucket that's coming to maturity next year and the following year, and then I'll reevaluate where I'm at and what I'm going to reinvest. So I said that I was going to talk a little bit more about bond funds. Bond funds suck right now. Right now, you have a lot of things going on in the market, and the Feds in particular. I don't know if the rates are going to go up. The treasury rates are going to go up, or the bank rates are going to go. The prime lending rate, I guess that's what it's called. They don't know if it's going to go up, if it's going to go down. There's inflation issues. There's issues with T-bills and government lending, and it's all having an adverse impact on those bond funds. I don't know all about it, but I do know that I had some money in it for a couple months, and I was losing money in those bond funds. Corporate bonds. So I told you that I have 6% in corporate bonds. They're mostly like triple B 2A, I think, which is two notches above junk status. So they're not, they're not A rated. They're B rated. They're still investment grade, but they're lower on the rung, almost junk bonds. You get a little bit more risk, but on the upside, you get more yield, right? So on those corporate bonds that I bought, as long as you hold them to maturity, whatever yield you got or that you paid for when you bought them, it's either you pay a premium or a discount, based on certain variables. Um, as long as you hold it to maturity, then whatever that yield to maturity was when you bought it, that's what you get. You don't lose money. You get exactly what you paid for. So, for example, the bonds that I bought were concentrics, mostly concentrics. There were a couple other little ones that I bought, and it was paying. I think the coupon was 7.05%. It was trading at a premium, I guess, because my effective yield is right around 6%. So I gave up a percent because 7% was, too valuable. So that's how that works. So even though the coupon says 7%, I bought it at a premium. So instead of, like $100 face value, I paid $101 or $102 for it. So the yield to maturity, the effective yield, goes down from what it advertises itself for on the bond, on the coupon. So that's it right now that I want to share on the financial side. I'll probably talk more about finances in other episodes. The other thing that I wanted to mention is, I've said that I want to focus on different things now that I'm in retirement. So I've been playing guitar. My book writing, I started off well in Serbia, and I was writing consistently, and then that fell by the wayside, so I'm not happy about that. The other thing that I wanted to mention is doing good deeds update. So what good deeds have I done in the last almost 4 months? Well, probably not as many as I'd like. The two that I would say, um, on the trains in Serbia, it can be very busy sometimes, and at least twice I was, these older ladies got on, and I was the first one. I jumped up and I offered my seat, and it made me feel good. It sounds stupid, but you'd be amazed how many people don't give up their seats for old ladies that look like they're struggling because it's 95 degrees outside. So I felt good about that. I didn't give up my seats to, any women, maybe there's, like even middle-aged women, because I was older than them. So respect your elders. So I need to continue to work on that. I think that I need to show more charity towards people, and I'll keep working on that. And that's why I'm telling you this. And then the other thing that I did is, well, now it's not anonymous, but I have it written down here that I donated some money on a GoFundMe page for a family whose whose children passed away, and they needed money for, it was somebody else created the GoFundMe, and they needed the money for funeral expenses. And so I donated it anonymously. I didn't know who they were. It wasn't a lot. It was $100, big deal. But it's try to do what you can when you can is what I would say, and I'll try to do more too. So those are my updates. It's next week we're headed to Vietnam, so we're headed to Asia. We're headed on the Asian part of our world tour. We'll be there through, well, through the beginning of winter, I guess, or the end of fall. Let's put it that way, and then we'll come back to Europe. So the next time that I'll be recording and posting anything, I'll be doing that in Asia. In the meantime, be good to yourselves. Be good to one another. Love you guys. See you soon. See you on the road.